The elevator bell chimed, soft and steady. Then came the measured tread of footsteps behind me. I glanced back. 3 men stepped out, moving like they owned the top floor of this Miami high-rise. Their eyes didn't flinch when they saw me, a flicker of recognition in their gaze, like they'd been expecting me. I was still gripping the door handle when one of them spoke, and I froze before letting go, caught in the pull of something unspoken. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe if you've been here before. New to this, welcome. You're in for a ride. Let's get started. The hallway was hushed, the kind of quiet where your own footsteps sound louder than they should. My suitcase wheels hummed over the plush carpet as I rounded the final corner, the air heavy with anticipation. The penthouse floor had only 6 suites, spaced wide, mine at the end with a view of the Atlantic. I'd picked it on purpose, no footsteps above, no chatter in the halls. I hadn't seen another soul since the elevator ride, but now the silence felt charged, alive. The elevator bell pinged softly behind me. I didn't stop but glanced over my shoulder, heart ticking faster. The doors slid open. 3 men stepped out, no chatter, just the polished click of their shoes on the carpet, a rhythm that set my nerves on edge. The first caught my eye, a man in a navy blazer, silver at his temples, nodding slightly, his gaze steady, like he already knew my secrets. The second was taller, darker, with a restrained calm, offering a smile that didn't overstay its welcome, but held a promise I couldn't ignore. The third spoke. Evening. His voice low, like he'd already mapped out where I was headed, and was daring me to keep going. I gave a half smile, the kind you toss to a stranger in a quiet hall, then turned forward, but my pace shifted slower, deliberate, like I was testing the weight of their presence. They didn't press, but their nearness settled over me, slow and heavy, like a fog you stop noticing until it's everywhere, wrapping me in its grip. I could hear their steps now, not fast, not far, but close enough to know they were there, tracking me like shadows. My keycard was already in hand. I reached my door, slid it into the slot, and waited for the green light. The lock clicked open, a sound that felt like a decision. Behind me, one of them spoke low, amused, loud enough to cut through but not to draw eyes. Same floor. Nice. I didn't turn but didn't shut the door either, teetering on the edge of something dangerous. For a moment, I just stood there, one hand on my bag strap, the other brushing its edge, fingers trembling with the weight of possibility. The air behind me warmed, like their steps had stirred the stillness, closing the distance between us. My room was dim, late afternoon sun filtering through the blinds, casting long shadows across the carpet, a stage set for what was coming. Then a sound low, careful, cushioned. I glanced back. The man in the navy blazer, the older one who'd nodded, held my bag strap, his grip a quiet claim. I hadn't even noticed I dropped it, or maybe I'd let it fall. You could have knocked, I said, voice steady but softer than I meant, betraying the heat rising in me. Didn't move an inch. Went smoother than I figured, he replied, his voice heavy, not forceful but weighted, like a hand on my pulse. He held out the bag, but when I reached for it, his fingers lingered, thumb grazing mine, quick and deliberate, a spark that jolted me awake. My focus slipped for a second, then snapped back, heart pounding like a warning I ignored. Behind him, the other 2 had stepped inside, their presence filling the room like smoke. They didn't speak, but the taller one, the calm one in the dark suit, moved forward, eyes scanning the room slowly, taking me in with every glance. The third followed, shutting the door softly, sealing us in this moment. The room went still, not quiet, but focused, like the air itself was holding its breath. I moved first, not far, just to the side of the leather sofa. I sat, crossing my legs, one hand resting on my knee, aware of every move, every breath. I noticed how I carried myself steady, unhurried, but inside, a storm was brewing. He still held my bag, stepping forward to set it on the kitchenette counter, then turned to face me, his eyes locking onto mine, unyielding. The silence was thick with small movements, footsteps, fabric shifting, the rustle of his jacket sleeve as I perched on the sofa's edge, holding my ground, heart racing but refusing to break. He stepped closer, not rushed, but with the certainty of a man who'd already made his choice, and knew I had too. He stopped near, close enough that I could have reached him without moving, and I did. My fingers brushed the cuff of his sleeve, brief, steady, a touch that said more than words. When I looked up, our eyes met, and there were no questions left, only the pull of something inevitable. He didn't ask. He just stood there, hand extended, palm up, like it was second nature, an invitation I couldn't refuse. I placed my hand in his, and as our fingers touched, he closed his gently, pulling me to my feet. The contact, a spark that set my blood on fire. No tension, just focus, a quiet intensity that drowned out everything else. My pulse wasn't steady anymore. It hammered in my chest, my throat, rising fast, like a tide I couldn't hold back. His grip stayed calm, grounding, like he was keeping me from falling or pulling me deeper. He didn't lead me far, just a few steps to the room's center, where the others stood, silent, present, their eyes a weight I could feel. The air tightened, charged with unspoken intent. One of them shed his jacket, folding it precisely over a chair's back, the soft fabric catching me off guard, like a whisper of what was to come. I stood among them, not directed, not guided, just there, centered, aware of their gazes, and my own reaction surprised me more than I expected. The man holding my hand turned to face me, body close, eyes steady, burning with a quiet hunger. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence louder than any words. The moment hung, not tense, but expectant, heavy with what we all knew was coming. I let go of his hand, slowly raising mine, unapologetic, adjusting the collar of my blouse with one hand, fingers trembling but defiant. The cool air against my collarbone made me pause, a reminder of how exposed I was. My posture stiffened for a second, then eased. As I surrendered to the moment, I held my gaze steady, then flicked it across the room, taking in the weight of their presence. One stepped close enough for me to feel him, raising a hand to graze my sleeve, testing the fabric, testing me. His touch was warm, lingering just long enough to burn, then fading, leaving me wanting more. Behind me, another presence closed in no footsteps, just a subtle shift in the air, like a storm gathering strength. He came closer until there was no space left, his nearness a pressure I couldn't ignore. I stood still, senses sharpened, every nerve alive with the moment. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was the pause before the plunge, the calm before the fall. The first touch came light, at my waist, steady, warm. enough to make me stop, to make me feel the weight of my own desire. I didn't flinch. I let myself stay calm, acknowledging it, embracing the fire it lit. The older man watched, his hand near my jacket's edge, smoothing the fabric, as if checking for flaws or claiming me. He didn't speak, didn't need to, his gaze a tether pulling me deeper. From the side, the third man approached. I felt him before I saw him, his footsteps, then his presence, a shadow that completed the circle. His hand moved along my arm, pausing at my wrist, a touch that sent a jolt through me. I noticed my own reaction, a small awakening, a spark I hadn't expected. I adjusted my jacket collar, smoothing it over my shoulder, trying to hold on to control. The room wasn't cold, but the air brushing my neck made me hyper-aware, grounding me in the moment. They didn't crowd me, but they were there, steady, present, their nearness a pulse I couldn't escape. I shifted slightly, my back meeting the wall behind me, not planned, but a firm anchor. I stood straight, unmoving, heart pounding but refusing to break. A soft breath grazed me as one leaned close, his head tilting near my shoulder. Not touching, just there, close enough to feel his heat. My shoulder lifted slightly, then relaxed, yielding to the pull. I shifted my weight, not away, not closer, just adjusting, finding my balance in the chaos. Another hand hovered near my mid-back, not pushing, not pulling, just steady, a quiet promise. The closeness built slowly, not forced but inevitable, like gravity pulling us together. I reached forward, touching the front of his jacket, not to move him, not to hold him, just to connect, to feel something solid in the haze. They didn't control the moment. But I didn't walk away, and that was my choice. I stepped forward, slow, toward the room's center, drawn by a force I couldn't name. The sofa was close. I moved to it, lowering myself, adjusting my posture, every move deliberate, every breath heavy. I crossed my legs, one hand near my hip, steadying myself against the tide. One of them stepped forward, sitting nearby, not too close, just present, his nearness a spark in the dark. Another stood behind the sofa, hand adjusting a curl near my shoulder, a touch more aware than tactile. I didn't turn. I just listened to the silence, letting it wrap around me like a shroud. The third man stood by the sofa, eyes direct, unwavering, like he saw through me. No one spoke. The silence wasn't empty, it was full, intentional, focused. A moment poised on the edge of everything. Someone leaned closer to my shoulder, and I felt the air shift before anything else, a ripple that set my nerves alight. My posture tensed, then settled, finding its rhythm. A hand brushed near my side, not firm, just a gesture, like smoothing something invisible. But it burned all the same. I stayed still, but my awareness sharpened, every touch a thread pulling me deeper. I adjusted again, not for comfort, but for balance, to keep from falling completely. My fingers grazed the cushion, anchoring me to the moment. My breath had changed, noticeable only because the silence amplified everything, making my pulse a drumbeat in the quiet. I slid along the sofa, slowly shifting my weight, moving with a purpose I didn't fully understand. No one guided me. I just moved until I was reclining along its length, surrendering to the pull. One of them reached out, not to lift me, but to steady me until I settled, his touch a quiet reassurance. I nodded once, faintly, acknowledging the moment. Their presence stayed calm, close, a circle of heat and intent. I tucked one leg under the other, finding my place in the stillness. One placed a pillow nearby, and I adjusted it, murmuring thanks, voice soft but steady. My hand brushed the seam of his jacket as I turned slightly toward him, a small act that felt like a confession. Another leaned forward, his forehead brushing mine briefly, sharing a quiet moment, then pulling back, leaving me breathless. I sank into the cushion, letting the moment take me. One hand rested near my wrist, the other grazed the edge of my sleeve, a grounding gesture, nothing more. I stared at the ceiling for a second, thoughts racing faster than my body, a storm I couldn't outrun. I didn't feel overwhelmed, not exactly, just full, like the air itself was too much to hold. Their movements stayed deliberate, rhythmic, present, each one a step closer to the edge. One stood nearby, hand resting near my ribs, a touch that anchored me. Another sat closer, hand pausing near my knee, steady but not demanding. The third stood at the edge of my vision, watching, his gaze a weight I couldn't shake. My lips parted, not to speak, but to answer the silence, to breathe in the moment. I hadn't noticed I was holding my breath until it eased, a release I didn't expect. I stayed there, not waiting, not reacting, just suspended in a moment I hadn't planned to enter but didn't want to leave, caught in a dance I couldn't stop. One knelt beside the sofa, hand resting lightly on my knee, not pressing, not expecting, just there, a quiet promise. Another leaned forward, balancing on the cushion beside me, his presence a balance to my own. The third stepped closer, gently cradling my face, holding it steady with both hands, fingers still, grounding me in the moment. My breath shifted again, softer now, a rhythm that matched the quiet. My back adjusted against the cushion, a small shift I barely noticed, but it felt like everything. My hands gripped the pillow's edge, not tight, just searching for something solid, something to hold on to as the world tilted. The moment didn't rush in, it gathered, slow, like water rising beneath the surface, pulling me under with its weight. I closed my eyes, letting the silence carry me, surrendering to the tide. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The moment spoke for itself. Quick question before you go: what moment hit you hardest? What caught your eye first? Drop it in the comments, I'll read everyone. If you haven't yet, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for being here.